They tried to steal my guns. What they didn't know was that I had a secret weapon. Military protocol. Here's how I turned the tables on fake HOA enforcers and exposed a conspiracy that shook my entire neighborhood. You won't believe how this all went down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening. Your support means everything. Jack Delaney, a retired military officer, enjoys his quiet suburban life in a close-knit community. The routine of maintaining his garden, taking care of his old dog, and working on his vintage car gives him peace. But one day, his calm is shattered when he receives a letter from his homeowners association HOA. It's an official-looking document, complete with a professional seal and legal jargon, informing Jack that his firearms violate the community rules. It demands that Jack surrender his guns within a week. Suspicious, Jack carefully reads the letter multiple times. He hasn't broken any HOA rules, and his weapons are legal. The idea that the HOA would overstep its boundaries like this gnaws at him. Jack contacts the HOA office but is met with vague responses and delays. Something doesn't feel right. After being stonewalled, Jack decides to take matters into his own hands. With his military training kicking in, Jack begins his investigation. He digs deeper into the HOA's records, scours neighborhood regulations, and even contacts former members of the HOA board. As he expects, no one can confirm the legitimacy of the enforcement letter or the officers mentioned in it. Suspicion turns to paranoia when he finds discrepancies in the HOA's paperwork, leading him to believe that something far more sinister is happening. Then, a few days later, a group of men in dark and marked uniforms show up at Jack's door, claiming to be HOA enforcement officers. They tell him to hand over his guns. Jack's heart sinks. These men don't look like legitimate authorities. They're wearing poorly fitting uniforms with no identifiable badges or insignia. They refuse to show proper identification. Jack, recalling his days in the military, recognizes the signs of a potential setup. Determined to uncover the truth, Jack begins his own covert surveillance, setting up hidden cameras around his property. Jack spends the next few days preparing, watching the men through his security cameras. The officers grow more persistent, even attempting to coerce Jack's neighbors into providing false testimony about his firearm ownership. Jack's suspicions are confirmed. The HOA's action is nothing more than a ruse orchestrated by corrupt individuals with ulterior motives. With the men still hanging around his property, Jack begins implementing his military protocol for handling potential threats. He upgrades his security system, ensuring that all entry points to his house are fortified. He lays out a series of non-lethal deterrents, setting traps around the perimeter of his property. He doesn't intend to hurt anyone, but he's ready to defend himself and his home at all costs. For the first time in years, Jack feels the rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. His mind sharpens. He knows the enemy is closing in. The men return the following morning. They are aggressive, demanding Jack hand over his firearms without delay. Jack refuses. His tone is calm, but his voice carries the weight of authority as he tells them they have no legal right to seize his weapons. The confrontation escalates when one of the men attempts to force his way past the front gate. Jack doesn't flinch. Instead, he pulls out his phone and calls the local police, calmly informing them about a potential armed confrontation. He demands immediate assistance, knowing this could turn into a dangerous standoff. Jack's house, now fortified with military-grade locks, surveillance, and tactical knowledge, becomes a safe zone. The officers realize that their intimidation tactics aren't working. They begin to grow desperate, but Jack doesn't waver. He knows his rights and isn't going to let anyone violate them. Jack activates the next phase of his military protocol. He pulls out a tactical communication device, connects it to a local police dispatcher, and relays the exact location of the intruders. Jack instructs the dispatcher to send backup, but he also makes sure to alert his neighbors about the ongoing situation. They begin to quietly monitor the situation from their homes, Ready to provide support if needed. To further deter the attackers, Jack sets off a series of non-lethal flashbang devices in the yard. The men are momentarily disoriented, and Jack uses the opportunity to lock down his house completely, trapping them outside. He then makes it clear through loudspeakers that anyone trying to breach the perimeter will be met with force but not lethal force. Jack is intent on keeping the situation under control, but he's also prepared for whatever comes next. As the men hesitate, unsure of how to proceed, Jack continues his countdown to the police's arrival. When the real police arrive, they are greeted by the sight of several officers standing outside Jack's house, looking bewildered and confused. The fake HOA officers quickly begin spinning their tale about being authorized to seize Jack's guns, but their story unravels quickly under the scrutiny of real law enforcement. The police begin questioning their credentials, and when Jack presents the evidence of the forged HOA letter, the officers' ruse crumbles. The real police quickly take control of the situation, demanding that the fake officers produce proper identification, which they can't. Jack's calm, controlled demeanor leaves the would-be invaders with nowhere to hide. The police force the men to the ground, arresting them on charges of impersonating law enforcement and attempting to break into Jack's home. After the arrests, Jack continues his investigation into the HOA. He learns that the president of the HOA, along with a few key members, was behind the scheme. They had been planning to use the HOA as a front for a larger operation involving the illegal sale of firearms and other controlled goods. The entire neighborhood had been unknowingly living under the thumb of corrupt individuals who saw their community as a means to an end. Jack's military background allows him to think strategically. He gathers evidence and works with the police to expose the full extent of the conspiracy. With the HOA's corruption laid bare, Jack becomes the unlikely hero of the neighborhood. The police investigation reveals that these individuals had been embezzling funds and manipulating the community for years, determined to put an end to the HOA's illegal activities. Jack takes legal action. He sues the HOA for harassment, defamation, and unlawful seizure of his property. The lawsuit gains public attention, and soon, other residents begin speaking out about their own negative experiences with the HOA. Many report unfair fines, unlawful threats, and intimidation tactics. The HOA board members are forced to resign, and criminal charges are filed against them. Jack's legal victory is not just a win for him, but for the entire community. The corrupt system that had once held power over them crumbles. The story of Jack's confrontation with the fake HOA officers spreads through the neighborhood like wildfire. Residents rally around Jack, thankful that he exposed the truth. As the legal process unfolds, more details come to light about the HOA's widespread abuse of power, and several other communities across the state begin to investigate their own HOA's practices. While Jack takes solace in the victory, he's also left with a profound understanding of how easily corrupt organizations can operate under the radar. His calm and measured approach in the face of intimidation has earned him the respect of his neighbors. But Jack knows that this battle is just one chapter in a larger fight to protect personal freedoms and fight corruption. With the HOA dismantled and the corrupt officials behind bars, Jack returns to his normal life, though now he is more involved in the community than ever before. He works with local officials to create a new HOA, one that operates fairly and transparently, ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. Jack's experience serves as a reminder to his neighbors that vigilance and courage are the keys to defending their rights. He continues to live peacefully, but with a sense of pride in knowing that he fought back against injustice not with violence, but with strategy, wisdom, and courage. The final scene shows Jack sitting on his porch, looking out over the neighborhood, satisfied with the change he helped bring about. The peace he fought for is no longer just his, it belongs to everyone. Jack wakes up the day after the final court ruling with a sense of bittersweet relief. While the legal victory was monumental, he finds himself haunted by the emotional toll it took on him. His life, once simple and quiet, has now been intertwined with a series of events that shook the very foundation of his peaceful neighborhood. His neighbors are grateful, of course, but Jack still feels a sense of isolation. For the first time in years, he questions whether it was worth it. The memory of the fake HOA officer's threats lingers, but now, in the safety of his own home, Jack has no one to share his burden with. His old military comrades are miles away, and he feels as though the battle is over, yet his heart hasn't found peace. One afternoon, while on a walk through the neighborhood, Jack runs into old friends. They remind him how important his actions were. As they gather on a park bench, sipping coffee and reminiscing, Jack is slowly reminded that the victory wasn't just his own. It belonged to everyone in the community who felt powerless against an unjust system. Weeks pass, and Jack tries to settle back into his regular life. However, the aftershocks of his battle with the HOA start to surface in unexpected ways. Rumors spread that other neighborhoods are investigating their own HOAs practices, but some of the individuals behind those investigations have their own motives. Some are interested in exploiting the vulnerability of HOA systems for personal gain. Jack receives an anonymous warning, urging him to be careful. The message warns that the battle isn't over, that the defeated HOA members might come back in another form, more dangerous than before. At first, Jack dismisses it as paranoia, but he begins to notice strange vehicles parked outside his home late at night, and his mailbox is tampered with. His trust in the safety of his neighborhood begins to wane as the unmarked cars seem to multiply. Even though the court case was over, Jack now realizes the depth of the influence these corrupted individuals had. Their tentacles still reach into every aspect of the community. For the first time since the confrontation, Jack feels vulnerable again. One night, the worst happens. Jack is awoken by the sound of footsteps outside his window. He rushes to the security camera feed, only to find nothing. But the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He checks the perimeter, every motion sensor lit up. When he opens the back door to investigate, a chill runs down his spine. A single note lies on the ground, its words written in large, hurried handwriting. This isn't over. Jack knows at that moment that the game has changed. The old HOA members had power, but now they have something more dangerous: revenge. He immediately contacts the police, but he's unsure whether they will arrive in time. Feeling the walls closing in on him, Jack decides to take more extreme measures. Using the military strategies he knows so well, he begins setting up his home with far more advanced security than before. Motion sensors in the trees, a safe room equipped with emergency supplies and communication devices. And most importantly, he establishes contact with a former military intelligence officer who owes him a favor. They begin tracking the movements of the people involved in the HOA scandal, uncovering connections Jack never anticipated. As the investigation deepens, Jack discovers that the former HOA members have gone underground. They've found new ways to operate, now part of a larger, even more secretive group. Their agenda isn't clear, but Jack knows they're preparing for something far bigger than just revenge on one man. It's time for Jack to get back into the fight. This time, he isn't just defending his property, he's going on the offensive. He contacts his military contacts and sets up surveillance on the group's suspected hideouts. Armed with his old military training and a network of allies from his past, Jack begins to close in on the shadows lurking in his community. Jack's sense of purpose is reignited. He takes on the role of protector once again, but this time, the stakes are higher than ever. The group's influence extends beyond the HOA. They've infiltrated local businesses, politics, and even law enforcement. Every step Jack takes feels like walking through a minefield, and he realizes that the community's safety may depend entirely on him. Jack's investigations reveal something even more alarming. The group of former HOA members isn't just a rogue organization, they are part of a larger criminal network with a global reach. Their activities include illegal arms trading, money laundering, and blackmail. Jack's findings leave him shaken, but his resolve strengthens. This is no longer just about his personal safety, this is about stopping a dangerous force that could affect countless others. He works tirelessly with his intelligence officer friend, gathering evidence and making careful plans to dismantle the operation from the inside. Jack uses the skills he honed during his military days: disguises, secure communications, and counter-surveillance tactics to infiltrate the criminal network. As he digs deeper, Jack discovers a connection that shocks him. The HOA president, the man behind the entire scheme, was never just interested in his neighborhood. He was the mastermind behind a global conspiracy, using the HOA as a cover for his illicit activities. The small-town battle Jack fought was only a fraction of the war that was unfolding. Jack and his allies organize a final strike, planning to take down the criminal network once and for all. The police are finally on board, but they're outmatched by the scope of the operation. Jack and his military contacts work under the radar, targeting the network's financial backers, exposing their illegal activities, and tracking their money trails. The tension rises as Jack's plan unfolds. The group is desperate to protect their empire, and they won't go down without a fight. Jack has made some powerful enemies, and he knows it's only a matter of time before they strike back. One night, as Jack prepares for the final showdown, he reflects on everything that's led him here. The quiet life he once knew is gone, but something inside him has shifted. He's no longer just a man living in a house, he's become a symbol of resistance, of standing up against forces that seek to undermine the community. The night of the final operation arrives. Jack, along with his military allies, stages a surprise raid on the network's hidden compound. The scene is tense, with every movement calculated, every decision life or death. Jack leads the charge, moving swiftly and quietly, his military training guiding him as he closes in on the criminals who've tormented his life. The battle is fierce. Gunfire echoes through the compound, but Jack's focus never wavers. He moves like a shadow, outsmarting and outmaneuvering the enemy at every turn. When the final confrontation occurs, it's a battle of wits as much as strength. Jack faces off against the former HOA president, now revealed to be the ringleader of the criminal organization. In a final act of justice, Jack takes down the network, exposing their operations to the authorities. The criminal empire collapses, and Jack is able to breathe a sigh of relief. But even in victory, the toll of the journey weighs heavily on him. His peaceful life is forever changed, but in the end, Jack has triumphed over corruption and violence. In the aftermath of the raid, Jack stands alone on his porch, looking over the neighborhood he fought so hard to protect. The community has healed, but the scars of the past remain. Jack knows he will never return to the quiet life he once had, but he's at peace with it now. He's become a quiet hero, a man who didn't just protect his home, but an entire community from forces far beyond what he ever imagined. As Jack looks to the future, he knows that life may throw more challenges his way, but he's ready. His military training has prepared him for any storm, and he knows that no matter what happens, he will face it with the same resolve and courage that led him through this battle. The story ends with Jack looking toward a new horizon, confident that whatever comes next, he'll be ready. With the criminal network dismantled and the HOA's corruption exposed, Jack finally feels the weight of the years-long battle begin to lift from his shoulders. The war for his rights, his community, and his peace is over. As he sits alone on his porch, looking out over the neighborhood, he takes a deep breath, letting the calmness wash over him for the first time in what feels like forever. Though the victory is sweet, it comes with a bittersweet reality. Jack knows he's forever changed. The peaceful life he once cherished is a thing of the past, and in its place is a man hardened by the trials he faced. But he doesn't regret his actions. He saved his community from a danger far beyond what most could have imagined, and he did it with the strength, strategy, and resolve he honed over years of service. The neighborhood is finally free from the shadows that once hung over it. People come forward to thank him, and for the first time, Jack truly feels the appreciation of the community he fought for. He becomes an unsung hero in the eyes of his neighbors, though he would never ask for any recognition. For him, the only thing that matters is that peace has returned, Jack's relationship with the neighborhood is restored, and he finds new purpose in helping others who may face similar struggles. Though his days of fighting are over, he knows his vigilance and commitment to justice will never fade. As the years pass, Jack lives quietly, but with the satisfaction that his fight wasn't just for him, it was for everyone who believed in justice, who stood up against corruption, and who chose to do the right thing, even when it seemed impossible. The HOA, now reformed and under the supervision of an elected board, operates fairly and transparently. Jack is no longer just the neighbor with the vintage car. He's the man who stood tall when the community needed him most. As he walks through his peaceful neighborhood, Jack knows that while the world may continue to throw challenges his way, he will always be ready to meet them head-on. With a final glance at the street he protected, Jack walks back into his home, ready to embrace the new life ahead of him, one of peace, security, and unwavering resolve.